And call the November 2nd HHS meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Chair Renahan,
Here.
Vice Chair Squarzi, Member Stillman,
Here.
Member Chaplin,
Here.
Member Dessert,
Here.
Member LaPlante.
Here.
I was here all along.
Timing.
Thank you.
And do we have any public comment?
No public comment?
Okay. I just want to say I'm really excited today that we're going to be able to hear some of the information going on with the care center. I know everyone's been supportive in terms of our ARPA conversations, and really think this is going to make an impact not only for who's there now, but very much in the future generations. And I'm just so thrilled that we're going to be hearing more about it today. The other thing I just wanted to mention, the benefactors ball for the care center. This is a family that's had a daughter who's been there for a very long time, and they are just so very grateful for the work that's being done and the people that are there. And I know Greg's going to go. I'm going to try to go, so hope you'll all sign up. It's only $100, and it sounds like a good time. So with that, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of October 19th. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those are passed. We've got one community services request here. I'll take a motion to approve FIR 0502, acceptance and approval of flood 2020 continuing care housing, $196,112. Second. Questions or comments? And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's approved. Take a motion on change order county contract issue to Megan Fritz to decrease and close by $12,999. Community services, and this is a roll call, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so a roll call, please.
Okay, Member Chaplin,
Aye.
Member Dessert,
Aye.
Member LaPlante,
Aye.
Member Squarzi,
Aye.
Member Stillman,
Aye.
Chair Renahan.
Aye. All right, that's approved. Item 7 is being pulled. Apparently it does not need to go through the committee. All right, so moving on to care center. Take a motion on HHS P041321, recommendation for approval of contract purchase order pulmonary exchange for rental of respiratory care equipment for the care center.
Second.
November 20th, 2021 through November 19th, 2022, not to exceed 35,000. We have a motion and a second. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's approved. We've got one budget transfer. I'll take a motion to transfer funds for preventative maintenance, annual inspection of oxygen for IDPH life safety, and for operating expenses for dining services.
Second.
13,943 for the care center. Motion is second. Questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's approved. We've got one authorization for overnight travel. I'll take a motion for our community services director to go to DuPage, Georgia for a
Second.
large urban county NACO conference, $1,359. Motion is second. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
That is approved. I take a motion to receive and place on file grant proposal notification 066-21 FY 2020 continuum of care
So
for
moved.
HUD, $196,112 for community services. Who's the second? Ashley, Member Solomon, thank you. Questions on this item? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is received and placed on file. We're going to put our community services director, Mary Keating, up first, and then we will move on to the care center items.
Just one quick thing today. We found out last week that IDA will be reopening their rent assistance portal November 8th. It'll be open for 3 weeks. They've changed the software, so either the landlord or the tenant can initiate the application. Before it was a landlord portion and then a tenant portion, so anyone can initiate the application. It'll be open for 3 weeks. It's up to 18 months of assistance now. It was 15 before. The cap remains at $25,000. IDA has distributed about 23 million of the funds that we've provided them so far. So we're in the process of discussing the next IGA for the next tranche of money, which we have already received. That'll be another 10 million that will most likely be bringing a recommendation to the board to continue this IDA partnership. I think it's
Awesome. That's great. Good news.
And to reach the portal, they will go through community services or only through IDA?
It will go through IDA. We're still waiting on IDA to get us all the digital marketing materials. As soon as we do, it'll be out on our social media. We'll make sure that all the county board members have it to put it on your own. Ida will be doing it. We'll reach out to all of the DuPage County Communicators Group for all the municipalities. So the, nonprofit organizations will be doing that, all that blanket digital marketing once again.
Thank you, Mary.
Great. Anything else? Any questions of Mary? Anybody else? Okay. Great. And we have no residency waivers?
No.
Okay, great. And then I will turn it over to Janelle Chadwick here to start our. Yes.
Oh. You want me to drive it or you want me to say slide? Or?
Next slide.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and sit.
All right,
sit down there.
so thank you all. I've been recovering from a car accident that I had, so I've still been a little dizzy. It's been going on for a few months, so this is the first time I've had heels on. We've got that kind of a scene going on today, so thank you for allowing me to sit. I'm very excited to be here today. We have Nick Jensen, who is our facility management leader. I don't know what your title
Yeah,
is.
facility manager.
And then we have Roxanne Knapp, and she is with Night Engineers. So we really pleased to be able to present this material to you today. I will tell you, you're going to see some pictures, and it really reflects the worst of the worst. It is somewhat grim, but it is a reality. And so we really felt it was important that you see that. So the first slide here, I think, is important because there was a lot of discussion about the age of the different sections of the buildings. And I will send this to everybody right direct following. So all the board members have it. So you can see that our newest building is from 1991, so it's 30 years old. The materials, the infrastructure is all the age. There hasn't been any major renovations to any section. So you can see it goes back to the 1970s. Okay, next slide. I want to talk a lot about life safety. What are our regulations? When we get to the criteria on the next slide, a big thing is public health. Public health orders. We are bound by Illinois Department of Public Health. We are bound by CMS, and we're actually bound by the health department because they come in and survey our kitchens. So a lot of these things that you're going to see are issues with public health. Anytime a surface becomes permeable, it can no longer prevent microbes from entering it. So we'll talk a lot about that. But you'll see these tags up here. These are F tags. These are what they would cite for these issues that you're going to see. Infection control environment, resident rights. Resident rights is huge. Residents have a right to a clean, safe, comfortable, home-like sanitary environment. And then you'll see the F921, again, some of the similar. So quality of life is very key, and that's what we're really looking at when we present this project. Next slide. You talked about criteria when we met last Tuesday, so I wanted to provide this. I think it's very informative. It shows you all the criteria for ARPA, keeping in mind that this is all to benefit the underserved or low-income residents, which we know that our population is predominantly low income. I think going into next year's budget, it's greater than 75% of our budget is for Medicaid. So we obviously serve the indigent and low-income population. So that's one of the main criteria. You can see there then, talk about the public health order. Number 2, enforcement and compliance with public health orders. So each one of our projects that we're going to walk through very quickly are across the top, and it shows you how that met all the ARPA criteria or did not. So I thought that was a very informative piece of material for you. Next slide. So these are our resident rooms. You can see that they look dated, they look dark, they're somewhat dreary. The cabinetry over to the right, that fluorescent orange. The largest building, the north building, each floor had a different fluorescent color. And so the cabinetry is of that, yes, and that's the same cabinetry. Granted, it was built like very well back then. You couldn't buy that kind of material now. We talked about actually refacing it, but a lot of the drawers are broken, but we'll get into that. So that just gives you a snapshot of the current conditions of resident rooms in general. Next slide. This is our floors. We have a multitude of different flooring throughout the building. Anywhere there is a crack, pre-COVID, if they came in and served us, either for our health environmental walkthrough, they would tag us for each of these cracks, and there are many. These are just a sample. But our stringent cleaning solutions have really broken down our tiles, which again are many 30 years old.
Any asbestos in these tiles?
No, not
Okay,
that I'm
good.
aware of. Okay. So not only is this an infection control issue, but it also presents a trip hazard. You can see the tiles kind of buckle, and so that can present a trip hazard. Next slide. Our ceilings, every area of the building is, when they come in for our life safety code, they actually get up inside the ceiling and they're looking for penetrations through smoke barriers and different materials and wires and things up there. Ceiling tiles are another thing. If they have water stains, they can tag us and would tag us. They feel that that's presenting a water issue up above there, which then would be an infection control issue.
Is that mold up there?
No, no, that's just when you.
Water stain.
H-
Dust too.
That's HVAC exhaust type, yeah, that happens sometimes. So any gap, crack, color, they would cite. Next slide. Which also doesn't look good for our residents. Our doors, obviously you can see we're really good at using chemicals on our door handles. It literally bleaches the wood. But what happens here is then that becomes very rough surface. So if our residents reach for that door and skin tears occur so easily, their skin is like paper, that just by reaching for their own room door, they could actually incur a skin tear. So not only has that become a permeable infection control issue, it's also a risk for skin tears for our residents. Next slide. Light quality. Me, Tim? No, it's me, it's okay. So we have a multitude of light fixtures throughout the building, and there are regulations on the number of lumens that you should have in the areas. If you look in the prior pictures, some of those areas are dark, so I'm sure we have some challenges with light lumens and those requirements and just the dated fixtures. So we'll be pursuing that as well. And this might be possibly through a grant, but we can talk about that later. Next slide. The walls with residents living in their rooms or on their units for the number of months that they were contained, the walls are just gouged. The walls are in ill repair. The walls, you can see them, they speak for themselves. So definitely have to address this as well. Next slide. This is the millwork or the cabinetry in the resident rooms. These rooms are, you don't see the fluorescent colors here except for that bluish color, but you can see the millwork and the chips. So if you're wheeling up to the sink to use that sink, you'll have that risk in addition to, does that look like a home-like sanitary environment? It does not. So definitely need to address that. That right picture is a shower, excuse me, it's a ceiling.
Yes.
Ceiling tile, because that's a sprinkler head there. It's just at a funny angle. So again, that's within a closet. You have to have sprinklers within contained spaces. So you can see that that's an old tile there too. Next slide. Oxygen. This was a great benefit to have. Most long-term care facilities or skilled nursing facilities have very limited oxygen or no oxygen in the walls of their building. They have to use all portable devices. So we're already a step ahead by having this. The challenge is the system is so old, they can no longer get us parts. So we're taking from one area that's not needing oxygen to fix another area. And now with COVID, we know the importance of oxygen. So we definitely need to get this addressed. Next slide.
This is our in-room HVAC, which is our convector unit. As you can see, the piping is very old, original. We're having multiple leaks, and this is a big source of some of our water damage in our ceiling. It also, the valves are failing because of the age on it. So it limits our control of the temperatures in the rooms. It's something that we're constantly closing and adjusting the valves, and when they don't work, it limits the flow and it limits it down the line to other rooms. So it's a big struggle.
Galvanized is no longer to code, is that correct?
A lot of the stuff now would be in copper, but we would use as much of the existing as we could to make it go as far as we could. So replacing valves, replacing leaking broken pipes that we know of, and utilizing the existing system as much as we could still.
Next slide. So this is just a little summary of what we've seen so far. It talks about that resident right. I think I really covered that in the interior finishes. There's so much more availability of better products. Handrails can be made out of a vinyl type material that also creates a bump guard so that when residents or beds hit those, then they're not gouging the wall. So there's a lot, and working with Roxanne, there's a lot of different materials that will make this stronger for years to come. Next slide. So here's our beautiful fluorescent nurses stations, and they actually look much better from a distance than they do up front. The one on the right was blue and it's scratched. It just is all like someone took stainless steel to it. So obviously they don't present well. They don't provide a low portion ADA for a resident to actually come up and talk with the nursing staff. So it creates that barrier, which is, a resident right concern too, is to have a greater connection with your residents. And also the flow, the inability to provide social distancing, just storage of medical charts, all the different requirements that have changed over the years. The space does not allow for that. Next slide. So again, we're giving you a different angle. You can see all the charts. We have to maintain discharge records. Anyone that discharged, the file has to stay on the unit until all of the different pieces of record come into that chart, and we do a final discharge note, which has to be in conjunction with the physician. So they kind of sit there till the physicians can get to them. So you can just see that we really need to work on a more efficient floor plan. Next slide. Behind the nurses stations, we have a medical storage, medication storage. We also have a supply storage. Medication storage has changed so much through the years with liquids and refrigerators, and everything has to, separation, and then all your files. So you can see that the rooms behind the nurses stations are also a challenge for space. That drawing there to the bottom left is a sample of what an ADA compliant nurses station might look like. Next slide.
The fire system, similar to the HVAC, we're experiencing a lot of leaks in the building due to the age of the piping. Our tamper and our flow switches are old. We're having trouble with them. And at this point, we're repairing as we find an active leak instead of getting in front of it. This would allow us to go through the system, upgrade some of our tampers that are old, which control the flow to the floors in case of fire, and just, make the necessary repairs that currently we're just, fixing them as they actually are leaking. And that's a lot of leaks too in the ceiling tiles that we're finding. Next slide. Just like the fire sprinkler system, the fire panel is old, and at the care center, we have to do 4 fire drills a month. 4 fire drills a month. So we have a lot of activity with the panel. We're continuously having ground faults. We've had some false alarms that the fire department has come out, and plus there's going to be a new code for smoke heads that is going to be coming around. Our smoke heads are no longer will meet code. But this has continued a problem, and obviously with the life safety and the false alarms that the residents are hearing and the strobes and horns. This will give us a full upgrade, new panels, which obviously is a big part of the life safety and for the care of the residents.
Just to be clear, our system is functioning.
Yes, it's currently functioning,
Right.
but
It just requires a lot of work and effort. Thank you. Next slide. Shower rooms. Shower rooms, again, we have tiles that are in broken or cracked, and we have like one person can take a shower in a shower room at a time, which most people might prefer, but you can make, I think they're set up for 3 or 4 in some of them.
Correct.
I mean, even if you had 2 really nice ones that are ADA compliant and spacious, and we're not looking to create spa like spaces, but certainly there's a lot of opportunity for not only replacing the tiles and the flooring, and also the layout. Next slide.
For HVAC, we did an independent evaluation of the system. We've identified about $7.5 million worth of work we want to complete there. We're going to be doing a lot of air treatment in there so that as the air goes through the HVAC system, it's treated so there's no bacteria or viruses, including COVID-19, that would be going through the system and be recirculated. When we did the CARES Act, we had 9 months and we focused our energy. We really couldn't hit the care center because of COVID, because of access. We could not award work knowing that if the facility is on lockdown, we can't have workers in there. So we would have liked to do more with the CARES Act money. We did do 4 isolation rooms that have worked out very well. So they're in negative pressure. So if anyone's in there, the air doesn't leave the room, it stays within the room. But we're able to focus a lot more energy on this with ARPA because we can now get in there.
Next slide. Here's the handrails I talked about that are, again, cleaned very thoroughly to the point where they're almost blonde. So again, create a skin tear risk and infection control risk. Next slide.
The exterior doors are obviously beginning to fail and have been failing due to the elements, due to salt, due to the age of them. There's also requirements that we have to meet for code for push-pull force for residents to be able to exit the building or staff to be able to exit the building. Right now, it's a struggle to do so. We're constantly working on these doors because of the age of the doors. We are grandfathered in at this point, but they don't meet the ADA code requirements for handles, for exit hardware. And as you can see, next slide, in the next picture, we've tried to make repairs. Of course, the repairs now are starting to fail due to the age of the doors and the use of them, and again, the elements and the salt use that we have to use for slips and anti-ice control. Next slide.
So laundry equipment, you can see in that bigger picture there, the left one where you see the washer. Our current model is very impressive. I'm sorry, I just love our laundry room, the way it's laid out. You put the dirty laundry in one side and washes it, and then you access it from the other side on a whole nother room. So you're not having dirty, clean crossover. That model has been recognized and highlighted by our surveys. They're very impressed with that. So these are past their life expectancy, these units. So we really want to get the very similar model. We need to tweak the floor plan in some areas. But for the most part, we're going to want to go with that same setup. So next slide.
For our residents, in isolation and quarantine, it was really brought to light the need for TV and recreation use in the rooms. Our current system, we have cable for some of the residents that choose or can afford cable, but then we have free air TV with an antenna. Of course, with digital TV now, that's a new type of broadcast. So we really struggle. We have a residential style system with 2 antennas. Obviously, we're a large commercial type setting versus an individual resident home. So we really struggle to be able to bring consistent TV to the rooms. We're looking into new systems and possibly even the option for room activities for residents on like a closed network type, which would be very helpful for our rec department, recreation department, and help keep activities going in the rooms if isolation or quarantine has to happen. Next slide.
So this is our primary entrance, and on the next slide, you'll see the exterior, or one of the next slides. But this is when you come into the building, you have your security, you have your reception, we have our screening cameras, which is great, but we have an immense amount of traffic. There's a flow of traffic of staff that walk through this area. There's vendors that come through this area. We have our residents coming in and out to appointments, especially dialysis that happens so frequently. So the space, obviously for COVID, we had to do social distancing, and I was standing out there and a surveyor was coming in to survey us, and it was the middle of an outbreak, and she's trying to put on her booties, and she's like, they're too close together. And she's like, not even in the door. And I went and got a tape measure, and I'm like, no, they're 6 feet. And so, I mean, just as a precaution, we created these barriers. So then the residents going out have to go sit behind this plexiglass, and ultimately we cannot accommodate the flow of traffic in the current floor plan. Next slide. So the right is the really nice portico, and you can drive up and be out of the elements, and it's great. However, there's no parking. So our primary entrance is on that left side, and there's just a canopy. Again, certainly doesn't present as home-like, not really warm, it's all pavement. We did put out some temporary planters and do plant flowers, but again, it's all non-grassy areas. Next slide. So this is our summary of all the different costs. You can see by project what that cost would be. Line 17 is supposed to say contingency, right, Roxanne?
Yeah.
And because the one above it is the mechanical symptom, so it does have a system. So it does have a contingency in there as well. I want to point out that with this, we do have the Kenneth Moy money that has been in an account earning interest and not used, so we would be applying that. Also CDBG grants, and then also a potential grant for lighting. So it's the combination.
How much is the control money?
It was 2 million. I'm not sure what it's at right now. We'll have to look at that.
And you're saying you use that for part of the project?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, If it doesn't fall into the ARPA ring, we want to use CDBG. If it doesn't fall into CDBG, then we'll use more. But we have our prioritization of how we want to spend the money. Some of this clearly is not ARPA, almost the majority of it is. So that's how we're going to try and dissect the funding.
All right, next slide. So there was a lot of questions about the south wing. We did do some preliminary discussions prior to our special finance call. However, we aren't in a position to really give you anything, but we are working on it and we will be providing that information to you at a later time. That just gives you some idea. A lot of that space is used for storage right now, not only ours, but Office of Education.
Yes.
All the departments over here use that, use our south building for storage at this time.
Just historically, why was that wing closed?
The licensed beds were over 500, and to have a facility that large and maintain that kind of a census just wasn't realistic. And a lot of them were multi-room, and people don't want to be in a
And
room
when
with.
was it closed? Like 80s, 90s?
I think.
I would say 90s. 90s, okay, thank you.
Early 90s, I think.
Yeah.
Failure of obviously everything that we have in there.
A lot of them were 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom rooms. They didn't have, the bathroom space. I mean, there were no bathrooms in some of those. So that we decided that was the wing to close.
Next slide. So now it's time for questions.
So
Yes.
one quick one before we do that, if you don't mind. The way we're proposing to go ahead with this project is we're going on the street to hire both an architect and a builder. We're going on the street literally if everybody agrees Thursday. December 20th, we will come up with a short list of firms. I believe it's critically important on this and for other projects, the builder needs to be with us if they want. Because as the architect comes up with their design, you're going to have 6 rooms at a time. You're going to have 8 rooms at a time. We can only work in certain hours. There's so many factors involved with the design that the builder needs to know it, hear it, and understand it for the commitments. When we're done, probably 50 to 60% through the design, we will then work to get a price from the builder and come back to you. The price would be, it's similar to how we did both DuPage and the CARES Act. It's a construction manager at risk. It's also called a guaranteed maximum price. All the work is ultimately bid out. If the bids come in under, like they do, or over, like what we just supply chain issues we have, the builder has to eat that. If the bids come under, we get that money back at the end, or it can be repurposed back into the space. The builder gets a fee. Their fee will be set when we do their first contract with them. We'll have 2 contracts with the builder, one to get us through design and a guaranteed maximum price. We will then come back to you, the board, for a second contract. I can't figure out another way to do this and try and work at a comfortable pace. We will also be coming back to you, the architect will come back to this committee several times with updates and statuses to make sure we're on track and you like where the process is going. So that's kind of how I'm looking to do that. I have 2 other projects that I'm taking a similar approach with. One is animal services and one is 503. But we can't, same thing with the animals. For example, we can't, those commitments need to be made with the builder in the room, and then the builder's off to the races, and then we get the pricing done that way. The phasing that's done, et cetera, all those pieces. So that's kind of, I'm not married to it, but it's, I can't figure out another way that I can do this very comfortably. The only way to do this is go ropes this long, do the design all the way to completion, then get the builder on board and we have to back them. So that's kind of our approach. So my goal would be spring, late winter or spring, to come back with you with a contract for full design and a partial contract with the builder.
Where do the residents go during the work period? I mean, do they have to be
Wings,
displaced?
if pretend we do 12 rooms at a time, just as a pretend number, those 12 rooms are vacated. They go to other spots. And so the negative of that is the more rooms we have, the faster and cheaper we can do it. The more rooms you give us, the more revenue is lost.
So right now our census is low, obviously related to COVID. We've not been able to take admissions most months for quite a while. So obviously we're still going to push to build that back up. Would we be at capacity? Not likely. So you have to.
You've got my consensus.
You have to assume some, potential loss of revenue if you were budgeted to run at capacity and we're not. So we do a lot of shifting, but COVID has taught us really well how to move people really quickly. So, yes.
Vice Chair Schwarzy.
So I'm not sure who to ask this, maybe Nick. We approved 17 million of ARPA money for the remodel, and then we also approved 17 million for HVAC.
The number on this slide was everything for facilities. It didn't include $10 million. You are correct. The dollar slide included 4 other projects that are outside the Care Center. So I apologize, that one slide.
So the, what,
You-
you said $34 million?
That includes 10,255,000 for JOB power plant for some space from Mary Keating.
So,
Yep.
so what
Good
you,
catch.
what you approved, ARPA, you approved, I think, 17 million for the actual care center project. You have also approved, I think, 7.5 million
Yep.
for the HVAC improvements for the care center. And then the remainder that's needed is going to be funded through CDBG and through the Ken Moy Foundation.
Okay.
And that will pretty much bring the care center to, I mean, it will conclude the projects over there and bring it to a really good place.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I totally agree with all of this. I don't think there's any one of us that could look at those pictures and think, let's not do that. I guess my question is, if COVID had never happened, I feel like this is kind of like a blessing, right? Like if it had never
We have
happened.
found many silver linings with COVID, you know, bringing the team together and having these huddles where anyone could come and talk. We never did that. If I would have done that before, I probably would have had a mutiny, but it worked really well. So there are some silver linings with COVID,
'Cause I feel
truly.
like it almost looks like our building had, you know, maybe a decade left where we could swing it. And I don't know
Yeah,
where we would have
right.
found $30 million.
Right,
So
right.
let's
Yes.
do it now.
Yeah.
And buy ourselves
Yes.
the time.
Yes.
And I also, I mean, if I could, I think it might be interesting. I know we have some sort of special funds for those things we have to replace all the time. Like, we're doing this vehicle fund, we set aside the tech fund. I wonder if maybe in the next budget, it's worth starting to look at a CARES fund. Like, the needs are always going to be there. I think it's something our board is proud of to support. But if we hadn't got this money, I don't know
Right.
if in 10 years we'd still be able to support
Right,
you. So we'll sort of take this opportunity to see how
Yes.
we can look at it.
Great point. Just keep going around the horn, Sheila.
Thank you, Julie. Not on this committee, but I have a question about contractors for this project. Are we paying a premium for contractors because of how we have to space this project out?
We won't be paying a premium for contractors. What we got to do is you've got to figure out the right balance of lost revenue versus vacant rooms versus efficiency of the building.
Okay, so
What
that's
we,
where
what
the
you,
law,
yeah, what
loss
we
would
don't
be.
want is you don't want a painter coming in and do 3 hours worth of work because
Right.
we're paying to drive there and we're paying them to drive away. So we've got to balance that out. Nick has told you numerous times, this is a 3 to 4 year project, and as you can imagine it is. So
Yeah.
we will work at a solid, good pace, but a comfortable pace. We're not going to work too fast. Work has to be awarded by the end of 2024. We won't go that far out. I envision this to be in 2023, probably early 2023. But to get all the pieces together, permitting from IDPH, when they get 90 days, normally that means that 70 days they ask for an extension, or they'll deny you. So, and I get it. I mean, I'm not, it's, God bless them. They do good work, but this is a slow process. We'll get everything put together and you'll see this all the way through as we move every step.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. I had similar questions about the contractors. And also, are you having to solicit from a very specific group of contractors and architects that?
Interestingly enough, I reached out to Tom Kukoc, who is the head of the trade organization for that group. He has 61 members. They know we're going on the street Thursday for work. We are going to get very, very good response.
And yet you do need people that really understand. I've had many projects where a builder and an architect came in, most people think they understand
Yeah, right.
long-term care regs.
Right.
They don't.
So that's what I
It-
mean.
it's very-
No, right.
Be very
A healthcare-
specifically trained.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the
healthcare.
builder and the architect. They both need to have that experience,
Yes.
and it will show up in the information that they give us to make sure that we do get the right firms.
Okay, so that you'll look at that as part
Yeah,
of like
the
what other
architects,
projects have you done?
the architects know about us. We do a lot of work. We
Right.
don't do that much construction work, but they all know that we're out on the street. I mean, I don't know, Nick, it took
Yeah,
hours for them to start reaching out
And
to
so
us.
the one thing I would add, and the delivery method that Tim talked about, it's actually a very powerful delivery method because the team, I mean, you have pricing included in the front end, but the entire project is bid out as well.
Okay.
So what you have is each trade, electrical will be bid out for all the electrical to bid out. Plumbing will be bid out. So you have like multiple bid outs, so you get lowest pricing out there, but you have a lot more control over the project. It's a very powerful delivery method, and having the right team there. And I will say, and the pictures tell, I mean, what you saw 40, 50, 60 years old in some place. I mean, some of those nursing stations are older than I am. And so what our staff has been able to do and what Janelle's staff has been able to do to keep it going, amazing. But this is going to be a game changer for that facility.
Wonderful. And then one other question that I have an idea, possibly a partnership with the Fine Arts Committee with making sure that we have good art therapy in place for the care center. All the data, all the research points to lower risk of truly infection, quicker recovery time. And I've been through most senior citizen and care centers throughout DuPage County for my parents. And they have all these really well-funded and well-supported art therapy programs. And I would really love to see that be part of this sort of new design, which would add to the home-like and really up the care that we're providing for our citizens here. So I would love to get that also.
I've been, as a regional, I had facilities that had very structured programs in place, and it was very strong. I will say this rec team is the strongest rec team I've ever worked with. They're phenomenal in what they do and the artistry that they do with them and the projects. But yes, I think, taking it to the next level.
Yeah.
When that occurs in the project might be later. But
Absolutely, but
Yeah.
to maybe put the earmark some
Yeah.
funding for that, because I can just conceive of partnerships throughout DuPage County with all the high school students. We're always looking for places to exhibit their art or to do performances. And I just think that if we got the community a little bit more involved in the care center, then we're going to get more attention and more support of the care center. So I want to make sure that everyone is aware of what the care center provides. So just earmark that for the future.
No, great suggestion. I like it. So Sheila, did you have another?
Did you guys, when they mentioned Tom Kukwitz, do you guys know who that is? It's the Nick before you. Okay, I just want to make sure.
The Nick before Nick.
I was like, this was gone before you guys got here, so sorry, go ahead.
Just a question about so you said that, you'll bid out the electricians and the plumbers but the architect and the construction company that we ultimately go with may not be the cheapest, but the best suited for the project, and I would imagine there'll be a scoring
It's
metric for that.
under state statute, it is against the law to negotiate price. We negotiate price with
Okay.
one architect. If we don't like it, we go to architect number two. Architect one is dead and we can never go back. So
Okay.
price is only a factor at the end. Personally, I'm not a fan of it. It doesn't matter, it's state statute. So that's the way
Okay.
it works. So, yep.
The team, just so everybody's aware, the team being put together for not only this project, but all of the ARPA projects are project relevant. So the team being put together for the care center is heavy on care center staff, as well as like Nick Jensen, who's there every day. The team being put together for the annex and the courthouse, or it's heavy on those staff because they're familiar. So we're very cognizant of having the right staff and multiple, 5, 6, 7 people on a selection.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I just wanted to thank you, Janelle. I haven't had a chance to get into
Right.
the care center due to COVID. And so, these pictures say 1,000 words. I'm just thinking of my mom, with the thin skin at the end of her life. And I'm looking at those rough edges going, this is horrible. So I'm so glad this is something that will be going forward. So.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just want to say, the same. And thanks to everybody else who joined us today. Thanks team, Nick and Tim and everybody else, architect, for being here today. I mean, I think we really are pulling together a strong, team effort. And it's been going on. This is, not today, not yesterday, not when we approved the money, long before these things have been thought out. So I do appreciate you coming and sharing with us first.
Thank you. Thank you all for your support.
Moving on to old business. I'll take a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. All right.